This is SpoFest.
Our final feature works as a Reiki healer and tarot card reader. She has served as Swampscott's Poet Laureate since 2018 and recently has been drawn to the haiku, and I never pronounced this right, ghazal forms, which is Middle Eastern form poetry. Her poems have appeared in Burn Before Reading, Eastern Structures, Kyoto-X Haiku Project, Sage Woman, and Trash Panda, and are forthcoming in Sci-fi-kuest and American Graveyard, an anthology on gun violence. She recently won honorable mention in the 2022 Tokutomi Haiku Contest. Shelli's books include In My Life, Encounters with the Beatles. She earned an MA in creative writing from Boston University. So please join me in welcoming from Swampscott, Massachusetts, Shelli Jankowski-Smith. Take it away, Shelli.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for having me tonight. Gregory, that was amazing. So powerful. Thank you. So, as you might all be aware, yesterday was Halloween. Today is All Saints Day. And it's that time of year when the veil is thin and it's a kind of semi-permeable membrane between the worlds. So my first set is a little bit based around that. And I'm going to start with this one I just wrote. We just, for the first time since COVID, opened our doors to trick-or-treaters again last night. So celebrating Halloween with all the little ones. And this is called Halloween After COVID. After 3 years of COVID fear, thank the gods for Halloween. At last, again, we tricked and treated, welcomed the wolf to the door, flirted with the other realms, and consorted happily with death. While we were away, the 3-year ledger of souls stayed even, at least for our family. 3 loved ones left the room, a father, a sister, a cousin, and 3 new grandchildren slipped in through the door. But that's not a real offset. It's not all a wash in the end. Loss isn't tempered by gain, and gain's not diminished by loss. They just live in different houses. You have to open all the doors. So last night we opened up our house to toy around with death. We dared to let night's little ghouls grab for our bowls of candy. And though we tried to keep them full, finally, by lights out, our bowls were empty. All sweet things vanished in the dark. And somehow it was okay. Everyone was fine with that. And I'm really into writing haiku. That's been my big thing for the past few years. And so I'm going to intersperse some haiku with the rest of my readings. And these are a couple of haiku based around Halloween. Great expectations. This Halloween, new family will join the altar. The Salem Witch Shop has I Put a Spell on You set on a tape loop. A strange Halloween. This year, our skeleton heads try to bite someone. All Saints Day respite. I let all my tarot cards take a holiday. And then this next poem again is, thank you. This poem's a little bit about the places where we connect and disconnect. Again, it's in that place between the worlds. And primarily it's about living with a loved one with dementia. And it's called All Morning, My Love. All morning, my love, I'm seeing the dead, or maybe old ghosts, or simply the living as they disappear, like you. Sitting on the deck with my cup of coffee, I think I see the yard rabbit, and yet he's not there. Then later he's present right in the middle of things, happily nibbling at fallen maple buds. I go inside to get you to come look, and you leave your TV, so we delight in the rabbit together. Here you are, and then disappeared. I walk back with you into your quiet place, and when I return, the rabbit is gone. And then finally, I'll close this with a haiku. Is it possible to miss rain before the storm? That's how I'll miss you. So this, without any further ado, is called When God is a Woman Again. She will probably wear red lipstick, at least for the big occasions, special holidays, the Last Judgment, her inauguration. But she'll be too smart to wear high heels. There will be less miserere, less mea culpa, eye for an eye, and more alleluia, much more walking barefoot in the grass, eating an apple. There will be purple light and a scent of lavender in the air. Her staff will get equal pay. Yes, there will still be that sharp double-edged sword, but wielded more lightly. Admittedly, last time around, she demanded human sacrifice, but thank her, she's more mellow now. She'll move out of that man cave in the clouds, live in a tiny house community in the desert or by the seaside, and drink light beer with the neighbors. She will hike and be tall and just a tiny bit thick in the waist. Her skin will be the color of dark bronze and her hair of piled up silver. Her eyes will flash storm gray. The sun and the moon will still trade places in the sky each day because she likes it that way. And most likely the tides will still rise and fall. She will keep pet parakeets, but not in cages. She will garden and sometimes wear pink Crocs and shop at Market Basket, never the mall. Of course, she'll be trans. She was a man for so many years, and look how well that worked out. Now, she will be both priest and priestess, Democrat and Republican, sinner and saint, protester and police, both analog and digital, dog of war and cat of contretemps, both Tweedledum and Tweedledee. Every so often she'll take a restful day off as a tree planted by a dark pool of water. She will enjoy paradox and puzzlement, the cracks between things, things between the cracks, dandelions, Sudoku. She will often say, I was wrong, but never, I'm sorry or excuse me. She will play the woman card big time. And when that happens, I'll ask her to deal me in. Thank you. Oh, thank you. All right, well, I'll close this set with a few haiku. This first one is actually based on a headline in a Japanese newspaper, which I'll talk a teeny bit about. How can she bear it to be loved and tossed aside, discarded sex doll? So I guess it made the headlines that people saw a sex doll in a dumpster and thought it was a body. So it made a huge splash in Japan, and it inspired that haiku. Genealogy. Born under the sad worm moon of my matriarchs. Even the tulips own their bodies, but sister, you and I sure don't. Summer not quite done. I stand before the mirror and chop off my hair. In my next lifetime, I might be a sandpiper just to lighten up. Thank you so much.
Why is the revision process so important in writing?
Yeah, I think it's a matter of balance because, writing a little bit off of what Gregory was saying, I think that initial impulse, whatever fuels the poem, that energy, that inspiration, whatever, is really essential. And on the other hand, sometimes you end up putting a lot of your, what they call your little darlings in the poem that don't need to stay there. And so that balance of keeping the spirit of that initial impulse and not killing that, not editing to death a poem, while at the same time refining it and carving out a clarity for yourself of what you were trying to teach yourself. What are you trying to tell yourself? So I think editing or revision is always a process of clarifying for yourself, not only for the reader. Once it's clear for you, it's likely going to be clear for others. I think it's really important, though, to set a poem aside for a while and not look at it for a while and then come back to it and see it with fresh eyes. And I do that a lot, and I don't always end up doing huge editing as a result. Sometimes I'm happy with what I come back to, but sometimes I'm just like, what the hell were you thinking of? It's just, it can be so heinous, what certain things in there that it becomes really clear over time to me what I need to work on a little bit. So, for me, the process is important, but it is a balance to not kill the poem in the process.
Did you approach the same way with your haiku?
Yeah, I actually, when I started out writing haiku, I never edited them because my assumption was that a haiku is supposed to arise out of that moment and stay with that moment. But the more I've written haiku and the more I've been studying for a couple of years with a haiku master, and now I'm in a year-long master class, the more I've discovered that I can actually edit and refine to the benefit of my haiku. So I'm going to start with a ghazal. And this is a form that comes from ancient Arab and Persian cultures. And it's written in a series of couplets. And it uses rhyme and repetition in an unusual way. It's not supposed to be narrative. A ghazal is supposed to be, it's compared to a string of pearls, where each couplet is like a pearl on a pearl necklace. And they don't tell a story necessarily, but each pearl illuminates all the rest to create beauty or whatever meaning. Growth. She asked him, "Just what's your intent, a rose?" Then she held in her breath as his lament arose. "Please don't undo Gertrude's dear tender buttons. With her rose is a rose, she just meant a rose. As things die off, we still do need some beauty. If it didn't exist, would we invent a rose? Tell me, if you had to pick your poison, would you grind up a lotus or torment a rose? I'm so tired of being someone else's flower. I've learned to become the mere scent of a rose. Once in Shiraz, I sniffed out Sadi's bright tomb, so I'd always recall the descent of a rose. We need a motivational speaker for our garden. The big question is, can you incent a rose? My love, though I said I'd give you some candy, of course your dear Zainab instead sent a rose. Thanks. And with a ghazal, traditionally, you're supposed to sign off with your name or with your pseudonym. And in Iran, I was kind of tried to convince me to take on a Persian name, which I refused to do. But in my own way, in my ghazals, I've taken on the name of Zainab by my rules. So that's the Zainab. And then for my last kind of longer poem, I'd like to end with this one. It's based on a newspaper headline. So I live on a coastal town north of Boston called Swampscott, which also Lee Eric Friedman, we're townies together here. And this is a local newspaper from a town named Beverly next to us. The headline is Beverly Pizzeria Owner Accused of Using PPP Loan to Buy Alpacas. Alpacas. And yet, how better to negotiate one's way across the mountainous slopes of wayward fortune than to raise an alpaca or three on simple straw and water? How better to hitch your heart to the hopeful stars than to saddle your oh too weighty burdens to a string of alpacas and move slowly forward over life's rubbled paths? Can we not admire the greatness of vision it takes to emerge from a wasteland of pandemic into the lush, green wonderland of Vermont with the singular goal of alpaca husbandry? I, for one, used my last government stimulus check to purchase a modest chinchilla farm, but I can see now that I was thinking too small. Oh, to have a posse of alpaca allies at my side. I'd dress them in bright and tasseled halters. They'd ring out with tiny jingling bells. We could be heard all the way up the road, and you'd know, by golly, that I'm on my way to better things. Oh, Great Spirit, who guides our ways as we slog through each new disease and challenge that you see fit to sling at us, may we at least always hold the hope of soft and sturdy, governmentally funded alpacas to brighten our way. All right, and then I'm going to close this set with a couple haiku. Seeking more status, he moves to a bigger pond, paramecium. I know things are hard. Maybe we should throw a stone at the sugar moon. On a granite cliff, overlooking rough, dark seas, he ties his shoelace. And finally, one more foggy day at the end of Swampscott Pier, our old sea monsters. Thank you.
Good to the last word. This is SpoFest.